answer all of those questions firstly, and then once we start off with the pseudocode, I won't be answering these questions which are not relevant to the question. So Azan is saying, sir, I have solid basics of pseudocode, but I have not done the past paper. So do I have enough? Easily, you do have a lot of time, like easy peasy A star, inshallah. Like I personally remember for all my examinations, I got 7 A star, 1 A in my O levels, and then straight A's in my A levels. And I usually started off with my past papers at the end of March. So don't worry. So yeah, and by the way, for those who might be still struggling with the past papers, you can also sort of join a past paper session. It's going to start off from the 1st of April, and it's going to go till what do we call it, till your CIs, and we're going to do everything in great detail in that. So yeah, so definitely start off with ELEs. Count का 1 कब से initialize करते हैं और 0 कब से? This Saad is a very good question about when to initialize count variable with 0 and 1. It sort of depends upon the question. So if let's say you're making use of count variable in an array, you need to see whether the array's first index is 0 or 1. Usually it's specified in the question. If it's not specified, in that case, it's up to you. You want to make use of count as 0, you need to go from 0 to whatever the index. Let's say you want to count from 0 to 50 elements. So 0 to 49 will be the range. If you want to do it from 1, you're going to take it from 1 to 50, right? So you should be aware of the ranges. And to be honest, apart from that, it's not going to make any difference whether you want to go with count as 0 and count as 1. It's up to you. But the main thing is that when you make use of these values, it's really important that you look up to the specific range to which it's going to go. Because if you set a count with 0 and you want to go through a loop for 50 items, then it's going to be going from 0 to 49. Why? Because your computer counts 0 as the first element. So if I want to count 50 things and the first item is 0, then basically when you count 49 items and you also count the 0, that's going to be the 50th one, right? So Shanice, sir, मुझे 15 marker बिल्कुल नहीं आता, can I get a name? बिल्कुल आ सकते हैं, and you also have a lot of time, bro. Why not? You can easily get that 15 marker. I'm telling you, if you guys feel like your pseudocode problems, you can solve those easier questions, but you cannot solve that 15 marker, then you should join my past paper session, because that's the whole purpose. We're going to master how to solve those 15 markers, inshallah, in that. And also my specific sort of past paper questions, which I will be doing, they will be sort of more inclined towards paper 2 to help you ensure that you get that command over 15 markers. So yeah, no, Abdul Rahman, this class is sort of going to be just a practice class for the pseudocode. And if you want to learn the concept, you can just check out our YouTube channel. Link मैंने ऊपर share कर दी थी. On that, we have uploaded the videos for all this stuff. Do we only study past paper questions or customized questions as well? In the past paper session, we will be only doing the official past paper questions from the Cambridge IGCSE and O-level sort of whatever questions are. Will we be doing scenario? Today, we won't be doing any scenario questions. They will be inshallah done over the weekend. Sir, array समझ नहीं आ रहे, मेरे YouTube channel खोलो, उसके अंदर go to chapter number 8 playlist. We have sort of covered everything in great detail. वो video देख लेना, everything will be fully explained in great detail, inshallah. Sir, please some trick for paper 1, especially chapter 3. It's too boring and hard to memorize definitions. Now P1 looks harder than P2. To be very honest, I agree with what you have to go through, but the thing is, you should start off with topicals, right? If you struggle with paper 1, the best way to ace P1 is doing topicals. Now your chapter number 3, if you feel like it's too boring, I get that, it has a lot of repetition part, but अगर आप ये बोल रहे हो कि you're memorizing how the input output devices work, then let me just tell you कि वो चीजें course में नहीं है, right? You should be aware of that. School के teachers जो बोल रहे होते हैं ना कि भाई you need to go and learn how a mouse works, how a keyboard works, that is not in the course, by the way. So it's sort of, you should be aware of that part. So yeah, sir, I know pseudocode a little bit like the symbol, but I have no idea about file handling and all that. What do I do now? Don't worry, we will be inshallah posting more content on our YouTube channel. You can watch that if you just want to clarify file handling all part. It's not uploaded as of now, but we are planning on doing it. So yeah, and what are the fees for the class? So the past paper session class will be, it's a one-time payment of 14,000, but that 14,000 will be not for 1 month. It's basically for over 1.5 months. So we're going to start off from 1st April and it's going to go till your Cambridge CS paper number 2. So this whole month will be covered under 14,000, and we will be giving you live classes 5 or 6 days a week. And alongside that, there will be topical recordings available for you. So that if anybody of you, like you said, you hate chapter 3 and you want practice with that, you can sort of directly jump into chapter number 3 topical recordings. You can watch that. And at the same time, definitely, if you don't get anything, you all can always reach out to me on my private WhatsApp number. So it's 14,000 for 1.5 months, a fully focused past paper oriented session. If anybody of you is interested, I can share the form at the end. आप लोग वो fill कर देना, or you can always reach out to me in my DMs or all that stuff. So yeah, did you get 150 or 150 for distinction? No, I guess I did not get 150 or 150. I'm not sure about my exact marks. वो मैंने देखने हैं. But the thing is, To get a distinction, I always say this: distinction does not mean scoring full. Distinction basically means that you score the highest in a region. So like if I got a top in Pakistan in computer science, alhamdulillah, this basically means that I scored the highest in entire Pakistan. So if I like say even scored 147, but like no one scored 148 in Pakistan, then apparently I am the top in Pakistan. That is how it works. Say, so, sir, in P1, is it compulsory to write the answer same as key to get marks, blah, blah, blah? No, it's not necessary to write your answer just the way it is according to the marking scheme. However, it's highly recommended that because you do have like 2 months, why not make it as similar to the marking scheme? So it's not going to be making a difference. It's going to be sort of, if your answer includes the keywords, if the answer includes the keywords, in that case, it's not going to be making a difference. But if you're like mentioning vague points are like, if it says define pixel and you're like, it's a small box at the top corner of your computer which sort of does this, because that is not how you need to answer the question. In that case, you will be losing marks. Sir, what file have you opened? It is the syllabus. We're going to start off with that. Class timing, no. If you, for the past paper session, it's going to be fixed. It's going to be inshallah ta'ala from 9:30 p.m. to 10:45 every day, Monday to Friday, and most probably maybe even Saturday. That's who I'm taking this. So, yeah. Sir, what is the weightage of Boolean logic and databases? You get one question for both of them in your paper number 2. If you get bunch of A's and B's in O levels, can we get to lumps? Depends upon what school you want to go in. And baki lumps ke related jo questions hai, we're going to inshallah have a separate session for that. So usko hum udhar kar lenge. The recording will be, yes, the recording will be available on YouTube. Don't worry. How much marks? Marks for? No, the past paper session will not be free. It's only for the registered kiddos. So Saad, the class where you have like with Sir Ahmed, I even had a talk with Sir Ahmed. Wo is tarah ke Sir Ahmed class will basically be maybe every alternate days. So yes, so what you can do is that when you have a class with Sir Ahmed, that day you can watch the recording if you want to go with our course, and the recording will be immediately available for the course, and wo aap aaram se kar lenge easy feed. So usually usual threshold for A star in CS. Roundabout, if you score 120 or above, you're good to go, inshallah. So this is an easy, good margin. Agar aapne bilkul safe end pe rehna hai. Boolean logic and databases, paper number 2, kitne marks hote hain? Around about 8, 9 marks, maybe 6 to 8 marks. Kya kehte hain, will be for each of the questions. Should we spend time on Boolean logic and database? No, definitely you should spend time. These are sort of the easy marks. You don't want to lose upon these 2 questions. They are the questions which almost everyone is going to get correct. No, we won't be discussing how pseudocode has to be written. It's just going to be that we will be doing questions. क्योंकि मैंने कहा 10 मिनट में आप लोग के general queries address कर लूँ ताकि फिर हम focus होके आगे चले जाएं. So हम कोई questions नहीं करेंगे. We will be sort of just doing the pseudocode questions. And if you want to learn those questions, how to attempt those and the logic behind pseudocode, you can watch our YouTube channel for that. So is filing important? Yes, it is important. A question can definitely come on it. So don't take risks, guys. For your CIs, don't miss upon anything. I'm telling you, a lot of students do this, but that's not how it works, right? You have a whole 2 months. You can easily get an ASA even if you start now. For those who might be like literally cooked at this point, who have just wasted their entire O3 year and haven't done even a single bit, I'm telling you, if you go with my recorded lectures course and you join in at this point for those lectures and you lock in the right way, I can inshallah assure you that you can easily bag that ASA even if you start off right now. How much theory marks come in P2? That's a good question, Mohib. We do have comparatively a lot of questions. It's not like 50-50, but you can say around about 30% will be theoretical part of paper 2, which constitutes your chapter number 7 mostly. So isn't Boolean and database doable in one day? It is sort of doable if you lock in. So ये कोई नहीं हो सकता है, but I recommend spending at least 2 to 3 days to fully understand it. सर जिनके बेसिस नहीं अच्छे फिर वो कैसे समझे? वो मेरे YouTube चैनल को जाके वहाँ पे प्लेलिस्ट खोले, वो बिल्कुल मैंने ऐसा समझाया जैसे आपने कभी पढ़ा ही नहीं है ना, आपको अच्छे से समझ आ जाएगा. सही है, डोंट वरी. सर आज के बाद मैराथन पेड होंगे? नो, मैराथन्स कंडक्टेड टिल the 1st of April will be free of course for everybody. Starting from the 1st of April, all the past paper classes which we are going to be conducting, they will be paid for only registered kiddos. See, A grade threshold depends upon the paper, कोई fix नहीं होता. What should I focus on so that I can answer that question? You should basically focus upon all the basic concepts if you want to ace the 15 marker. Unless you don't have your strong basics, doing a 15 marker is literally difficult. It's sort of similar to saying कि मैं बोलूँ मैंने Burj Khalifa बनाना है, but I ensure that my basics so weak that it can't even stand a 2-story building. How can I make such a big building, right? So sort of similar to that. What is the most important subtopics in P1 and P2? To be honest, everything is important. Sir, any important changes for? No, there is no important changes for 2026 syllabus. If you follow the 2023 syllabus changes, you would be good to go. सर ये सारे सॉफ्टवेयर सिक्योरिटी एंड एथिक्स कोई टिप्स टॉपिकल्स करो एंड जो एक मैप बनाओ कि व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन समथिंग लाइक व्हाट इज malware के क्या क्या टाइप्स हैं, व्हाट ईच ऑफ दोस टाइप्स आर, व्हाट हाउ कैन वी रिमूव देम, हाउ कैन दे अफेक्ट अस, इस तरह की चीजें बना देना सर. हाउ टू लॉक इन द राइट वे, गुड क्वेश्चन. हाउ टू लॉक इन के लिए देखो इट्स एंड गेम. इफ यू डोंट गेट दोस ग्रेड्स एट दिस पॉइंट देन यू विल बी कुक. सही है. सो इट्स रियली इंपॉर्टेंट यू लॉक इन एट दिस पॉइंट बिकॉज इफ यू डोंट सो एंड में पता है मसला कब होता है, व्हेन यू गो टू दैट मिड अगस्त एंड 16 17 अगस्त को आप अपने रिजल्ट लेने जाते हैं एंड देन योर फ्रेंड्स आर सेलिब्रेटिंग एंड दे आर लाइक, oh let's go, I got an A star, yeah, and you're like, oh यार मेरा तो B आ गया, मैं क्या करूंगा. And then you're like telling your parents, and like that one call when you which you make to your parents after you get that A star, it literally sort of covers up the whole hard work you have been doing over the months. So like for me, whenever I made a call that I got an A star and I got like straight A stars and blah blah blah, it was sort of that moment that was crazy. So do it for that moment, right? If you don't lock in right now, nahi hoga. And just one other tip: if you are making use of phone, what I did was I had this problem in my A levels. Mein Baba Insta khulta tha. Best advice: you take your phone, you turn it off, you put it on your bed, and then you go to the table so that when your phone is not accessible to you, in that case you can sort of lock in the right way. And one other way of basically locking in the right way is that you make use of a technique where you study for 40 minutes. Okay, you set a timer, you study for 40 minutes, then you take break for 20 minutes. In that 20 minutes, you can just go, you can drink water, you can play, watch some video, whatsoever, right? You do that and then you repeat it again. 40 minutes study, 20 minutes break, 40 minutes study, 20 minutes break. And once you do that, I assure you it's going to be very helpful, and it's literally one of the best ways to lock in. So flowchart difficult one का भी class रखना है, इंशाल्लाह वो हम रखेंगे, next week करेंगे. सही है. When will this class end? Depends, जब मैं चाहूँ. अभी तो कोई idea नहीं. So why was October November 2024 threshold too low? Because I guess the paper was difficult. I haven't seen it though, but difficulty होगा इसलिए. Flowchart bro, weightage ये कि every question is being equally divided, so you can't sort of say anything कि कितना होगा. सही है. Exactly, it's one of the best feelings to be very honest. Sir, अगर अभी सिर्फ basics पता हो और अभी lock in करें तो हम किस तरह पढ़ेंगे? Like lecture सुनकर हम topicals आ जाए ना? For that, exactly, you should if you're just starting off, just go learn the content from lectures, and then after that you can basically go to what do we call it what do we call you need to first of all learn the concept, then you do the relevant topicals. Try to ensure you're done with the topicals and the course content by around about at least 15-20th April, ताकि the last 10-15 days should be for past papers so that you also work with the time management thingy. So exactly, Joe Sarabas ne batayi thi. Perfect. I have shared the link for the channel. It's with the name of Code Catalyst. I'm again sending the, what do we call it, link. And what is the major type of questions in paper 2 other than, yeah, you can open up any paper 2 and it sort of never has a specific question. Kuch bhi aa sakta hai. So chapter number 1 se start ho and aista aista karo. Sir, I don't know how to do the trace tables. कर लेंगे, don't worry. Sir, how many years should be your target? Good question. There is no specific amount of years, but I would recommend try doing at least 3 years, and 3 years से जितने ज़्यादा कर सकते हो तो उतना ही बेहतर होगा. All right, everybody, this is it. 15 marks, 15 minutes spent discussing all relevant questions. Now, from this point onwards, we will be jumping into the questions. How many classes we have in week? For the past paper session, we will be having 5 or 6 classes per week. So, koi chutti nahi hogi. Say we might only keep Saturday or Sunday off, but that also depends on maybe Saturday, Sunday both off. But we're going to see about that. But generally, for our course, it goes in a way that we have class 5 to 6 days per week. Monday to Friday hoti rehti hai, and then Saturday, Sunday, it sort of a bit fluctuates, but most probably it's going to be 5 or 6 days. So yeah, and the timing is going to stay the same. The classes duration is going to stay the same. So it's going to be a proper sort of, you can say, a pattern being followed. So it's 11:45. Let's lock in and start off with our content for today. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. For all those who don't know me, I am Muhammad Maaz Munir. I got a top in Pakistan distinction in IGCSE computer science back in 2023. So not a very old person, maybe a very young sort of aap log ka bhai hu bada. But yeah, just starting off with the content, I know what an examiner wants, right? Getting a top in Pakistan distinction was something people told me, teachers told me, by need possible. I got it, right? So anything is doable. If my teacher, one of my teacher was like, uski nahi aayi to tumhari bhi nahi aa sakti, because that one girl was very talented. And I do agree that she was very talented. But, you know, I got it. So if I can get it, why not you? Right? That's the question. You always should ask yourself, why not me? Why not me? And even if you start off at this point, you're feeling cooked or something, I'm telling you, You do it the right way, and inshallah, you get to that A star. So the purpose of today's class is to basically, firstly, introduce you to a bit of what grade did you get in your computer. I got straight A stars throughout my entire IGCSE levels. So starting from O1 till my O3, CS was something I loved. So yeah, so I was from Roots. So yeah, that was a different thingy. Do we start question? I had to do something. No, we haven't started. अभी तक हम general questions ही कर रहे हैं, but चलो good for you. Let's start off. So yeah, I did do physics. I took a lot of help from Sir Abbas. He was my teacher, and Sir Suleiman too. Both of them are goated. So yeah. लेकिन तो सर अगर मैं अब आखिर में फाइनल पढ़ूँ तो सर I've done everything तकरीबन, तो सर अगर अब मैं आखिर में फाइनल पढ़ूँ तो हो जाएगा. Whatever my other subject grade, I had 7 A stars, 1 A. The only A I got was in Urdu. All other was A stars, alhamdulillah, mashallah. And alongside that, I had a top in Pakistan distinction too. So yeah. No, yeah, that was a good question. Like, I did not generally study it in the last days, but a lot of my a lot of my friends, they sort of studied in the very last days. Like a friend of mine, he ended up with a C in his mock and got A stars. Another friend of mine had like B's or maybe even, I'm not sure though, but grades A's nithe, ended up with A stars. Very much doable. For my A level final exams, I remember, because I was focusing a lot on my university applications, I sort of did not focus upon my mocks, right? And because of that, I literally started off with at the very last point, and then despite that, my marks were not good, but I ended up with A's. So it's really possible. So I got one distinction in that in computer science. A levels where I had 4 subjects. It was math, physics, CS, economics, and in AS I had straight A's, and then in A2 I also got straight A's. Missed those A stars from a few marks though. But yeah, chalo, wo मैंने end में पढ़ना start किया था. तो A levels is a different story. You can't do it in the last 2 months. It's really challenging, but somehow I did end up with those A's. Still good though, because I was very focused upon my university applications, the US, the Hong Kong side, and also sort of like other parts of the world. So crazy scene. Currently, I'm studying in LUMS because it's sort of, I did have a few full rides from Hong Kong. I also had 105% scholarship from the US, but then there were some thingies जिसकी वजह से I decided on going to LUMS. So yeah, a few were conditional offers requiring getting A stars. So इस वजह से A stars वो I नहीं A's हो गए, so I lost my conditional offers at Hong Kong, but that's a different story, किसी और दिन discuss करेंगे. But right now I'm studying computer science at LUMS with a minor most probably in quantum technologies. So yeah. So yeah, काफी time लग गया. We have talked for 20 minutes. अभी let's jump into directly content and बाकी देखा जाएगा. Same. So first and foremost thing, everybody listen up and keep this in your mind for whatever IGCSE O-level subjects you're appearing in. Your best guide, your best friend, your best supporter is this one document which we call as the syllabus. Whether it's you preparing for IGCSE physics, O-level physics, whether it's you preparing for biology, chemistry, computer science, business, economics, always keep your syllabus alongside you. Syllabus tells you what you need to study. I always sort of tell you, like, for instance, one of you just study chapter number 1. Now, you won't be like, okay, मैंने book में सब पढ़ लिया. You know, your harder education book has a lot of useless stuff. How will you get to know क्या पढ़ना क्या नहीं पढ़ना? Don't ask teachers, right? Don't ask me, don't ask your friends, don't ask your school teachers. You know what you need to do? Yeah, the recording will be uploaded, don't worry. So yeah, the recording will be uploaded on the YouTube channel. Now, how you need to do is that, let's say you open up a topic, you cover that up, and you're going to open the syllabus, and then you're going to compare it with this. Okay, do I know all this? Do I know all this? Do I know all this? And at one point, you will understand that, okay, I do not know this point. Like, a lot of people would not be aware of this, that a computer or a device has a predefined limit that it can represent or store, for example, 16 bits. Now, you might be like, ये point बोलना क्या चाह रहा है? I don't understand it. What do I do now? So now, in this era, whether it's a 15 marker or any concept which you don't understand, please note that you have the AI world around you. You have Claude, you have ChatGPT, you have Google Gemini, you have DeepSeek. Make use of those LLM models. People are like, all these teachers are like, bhai, don't use AI. Bro, use AI. I'm telling you, make use of AI. AI has to be the best teacher out there at this point. I'm making use of AI everywhere, almost everywhere, right? Literally. So how will you be making use of this in the world of IGCSE O-level computer science? You might be uploading your book, okay, and then at the same time you're going to upload the syllabus, and you'll be like, bro, I don't get this specific concept. Can you please explain it to me in simple words? फिर भी समझ नहीं आती. Please relate it to me using some day-to-day example. Enter, and you will be shocked to see how easily they explain the whole concept. I made use of this technique in my A2 physics, and I sort of regret not making use of this back in my O levels and AS. And I'm telling you, because I'm here to guide you all, make use of AI for whatever subject it is. Answer जो समझ नहीं आ रहा, you don't get a marking scheme point, you're like, okay, is my answer related to the marking scheme point? Because a lot of you have this situation that I wrote that point and I'm not sure whether it's sort of equivalent to what I need to answer. You know what you should be doing? Take that question, attach the screenshot, marking scheme ke saath, attach your answer to it, and then ask it, do you think I'm sort of writing the same points, or sort of I have the same points, and blah blah blah. Sir, AI is sometimes wrong. AI is sometimes wrong, but only if you attach the syllabus to it, and at the same time you also attach the book to it, then it will be giving you all the answer based upon the material which you have specified. Now your book is correct and your AI syllabus is also correct, so making use of syllabus alongside your what do you call it, book, will give you correct answers based upon the material which is sort of within that specific क्या कहते हैं, resources which you have uploaded. Can we make key notes by uploading the course book and the syllabus? Exactly, you can. Why not? Definitely you can do that. But always make sure, don't be like you just open up AI model and you're like, okay, tell me what is this. No, you upload the syllabus, and you also upload the relevant book. And let's say you want to ask it a question related to exam paper. फिर क्या करना है? You can also upload the examiner report just the way Iman said. बिल्कुल perfect, right? Yeah. Which part? Like, let's say you're studying chapter number 4 का question and you don't get it. You can take chapter number 4 material, upload that. You attach the relevant examiner report. You attach the relevant sort of question alongside markings, and you give it your answer. And it's going to give you the right answer. सही easy तरीके से. सही. कोई नहीं, make use of Gemini, or you can also make use of DeepSeek. उसके ऊपर limits इतनी नहीं होती. GPT पे limits होती है. Make use of Claude, उसके ऊपर भी इतनी नहीं होती. Okay, now back to the content. So first and foremost, make use of syllabus. It's really important. When you are done with the syllabus, then you will understand how to get that perfect A star. Ab general tips to काफी हमने discuss कर लिए. Let's just get into questions. We're going to be starting off with inshallah ta'ala paper number 22, which is going to be of March 2023. This was the first paper, the very first paper, which was introduced. Ek second, let me open it up on the next page. Yeah. So this was the very first paper which was introduced after the syllabus update in 2023. Is it lagging, everybody? Can anyone else also confirm? Is there an internet issue at my end, or is it for Mahad? So video is lagging. Okay. Video is lagging. Let me just rejoin in for a second. Maybe अगर आगे हो रहा हो तो मुझे बता देना, सही है? Just tell me if it also lags again. When I think so, it should be solved. Don't worry. So let's open up this question. So we're going to start off with March 2023. It's basically the first exam paper which was sort of introduced when you had the syllabus update back in 2023. And this specific paper explains the fundamental concepts which were originally tested when the syllabus was updated. We're going to start off with this, and then we're going to see jitna hum most probably 1 a.m. tak kar sake. We're going to do all those questions. So let's just do our bismillah with it. So first of all, start off kar diya. We're going to take our pen and let's boom, directly jump into it. So today's class, only pseudocode. We won't be doing any sort of theoretical part or 15 markers, only pseudocode. So theoretical, let's do this question. So 4 descriptions and 5 pseudocode statements are shown. Draw one line to link each description to its most appropriate pseudocode statement. Not all pseudocode statements will be used. Okay, clear cut hint that agar koi point hame bol raha hai that it's not being used, then you should not be, should O-level students solve IGCSE paper? Depends upon the specific subject, because for some subjects like maths, for chemistry, there are differences, but for some subjects like computer science, economics, they're 100% the same. So uske andar difference. For CS you can, for physics you can't, because for physics there is a major difference in the syllabus. You can more or less confirm this with Sir Abbas. He can better guide you with this. But for CS, yeah, you can definitely make use of it. So coming to the question, this is a pseudocode statement, this is a description. We need to match them. For count 1 to 10, bro, for a clear indicator that it's a loop. We know that for loop is one of the most commonly being used loops. So we're going to see that, okay, a statement to the count, nah. A statement to the total, nah. A statement to start a precondition loop, okay. And a statement to start a post-condition loop. Oh, that's a very good point. Now, a lot of people are going to mess this up. You know why? They would be like, okay, it's a loop, let me do this. But wait. You can't do this directly, you know. We studied one thing. For loop works when you have the specific, when you know how many times you want to iterate it, right? When you know the number of iterations. If I don't know the number of iteration, in that case, I will be going for the post condition or the precondition loop. But if I, let's say, am aware of the specific times of repetition, then I'm going to be making use of for loop. And we call that as count control loop. So is a count control loop the same as the post condition loop or the precondition loop? No. So if you just saw this and you sort of created a line in between, you lost a mark up here. That is why students miss that hairstyle. So this has no point inside it. So when they said that not all pseudocode statements will be used, this means that it's mostly evident that this won't be used. Let's see whether it's true or not, but I feel like this won't be used. The next one says value, and you assign value plus some new value. Clear cut. We saw this in chapter number 7 when we were discussing the concept of totaling, that this is what we call as totaling. You take a value and you basically assign it that value. So we're going to make a line to this. Then next one says while value is greater than 10. So we always make use of while loop when we have a condition at the top. So I will be like, okay, while value is greater than 10, you need to do something. And then I would be like, okay, and while. So if you look up at the structure of this specific sort of loop, it's sort of pretty much very, very, very evident that the loop is being applied at the top, which means that if the value is less than 9, if the value is, let's say, less than 10, let's say it's something like 9 or 8, it's never going to run this, right? So this tells me that the condition is being checked at the top, which is sort of telling me that before running the code, we have a precondition checkup. So when we have a precondition checkup, that statement comes up here. That a statement to start a precondition loop where we are sort of checking the condition beforehand. So that's going to come up here. Then value plus 1. Clear cut indicator that it's going to be a count statement. We are just counting that if one thing has happened, uske baad agar ek aur hai, so we're just incrementing the value. This one point where you basically add 1 into it, this is also known as increment by 1. So if you anywhere see in your papers or anywhere in the blog or wherever, if you see the word increment by 1, this basically means that you're increasing the value by 1. Say, and just like that, a statement to start a post condition loop. Now, what's a post condition loop? Bro, we have a post condition loop when we have the condition at the end. So you have some code and then you do repeat until, let's say, value is less than 9. So you sort of have to keep on repeating the same thingy until your value is not less than 9. Because if it is less than 9, your computer will be like, okay, you still need to repeat it. So you see that the condition is being checked at the end. And because the condition is being checked at the end, we call this to be a post condition loop. This is a post condition loop, which means that we're going to point this towards this. And boom, I was correct. This point is not being discussed anywhere. Why? Because your for loop is neither a precondition loop nor a post condition loop. Perhaps it's a count control loop. People are not aware of this. And they might make a mistake. They'll be like, oh, yeah, easy question. Yeah, I'm going to get that. And they mess up. And they don't get that answer. That's the reason why they don't get an answer. Okay, Rahim, that's the exact reason why they don't end up getting A stars. Because वो समझते हैं कि it's going to be a loop and we saw a loop and we join it. But that's not how it works. So now let's move on to the next question. So it says that you need to write an algorithm in pseudocode which makes use of one loop. Important point. When the question says that it's going to be making use of one loop and you make use of two loops, then you're sort of messing upon your marks. So you need to write an algorithm in pseudocode which is going to make use of one loop. It does not specify which loops to use. Acha, can you please explain post condition loop again? Post condition loop is any loop which basically checks the condition at the end. Condition at the end. So we have studied three types of loop. We studied the for loop, we studied the repeat until loop, and we studied the while loop. So when we use the for loop, we know for loop works for a specific number of iterations. That is known as count control loop. When we make use of while loop basically checks the condition at the top while value is greater than 10. Because it checks the condition at the top, we see that this is a preconditional loop. Whereas repeat loop, if we make use of repeat loop, you see that repeat loop checks the condition at the end, that repeat, blah, 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 whatever the code is. And then you at the end do until value is less than this or greater than this or equal to something, right? So what's happening? We're repeating something until something becomes true. So in this, the condition is being basically checked up here. So it's at the very end. So because something is being checked at the very end, we gave it the name of post condition loop. What is post? किसी चीज के बाद. What is pre? किसी चीज से पहले. So when we check पहले वाली loop, that is going to come after while. Whereas when we say that we have to check post condition, जो कि बाद में condition होगी, so you see you're checking the condition after writing the code. Here's going to be the code. So that is why we say that repeat loop is basically your post condition. Same. So now, moving on to the next question, it says that you need to write an algorithm in pseudocode using a single loop where you need to basically output the average of 50 numbers that have been stored in the array numbers. Now, first and foremost thing, the question never says that you need to declare anything. So if I open up the marking scheme for this, you can clearly see that there is no need to declare a variable with the name of total or maybe average. Not required at all. No declaration required. No declaration required. If the question mentioned, फिर तो करनी होती, but because they did not mention it, we don't need it. Secondly, the array has already been filled, so you do not need to initialize it. No need to initialize. Why? Because they say that there is an array which already has values. So what's happening? They're saying that there is an array which sort of has this model where we might have 50 rows inside it from here. Let's say, let's create it, visualize it, 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, up to 50. And at every point, we sort of have some marks, right? 60, 65, 45, 28. And what I need to do is I need to grab one of these values. I'm sort of going to grab each of the values. I'm going to add them into a variable total. I'm going to find the sum for all of them one by one till I do it for all 50 of them. And then I'm going to be basically dividing total by the number of students. So how many students I have? I have 50 students. So when I do total by 50, this is going to give me an average. What's the formula of average? Average is basically total by the specific count or the specific number of students. So we're going to be implementing this logic up here. Ab hoga kya? Very bad. If we still declare, will we lose marks? No, you won't be losing marks. But if you see that, if you sort of declare it, you're sort of wasting these two lines, and at the same time you're also wasting your time. So it's not required though. But again, if you declare it, it won't be like you're going to lose marks. So as the syllabus has changed from 2023, therefore I was told to practice 5 years of papers minimum. But as the syllabus has changed, therefore is it needed to solve past papers before 23? First and foremost, you should try to first solve 2023 onwards paper. Agar uske baad you have time, I would recommend that you should go on to 2021 ke onwards wale paper. But at the same time, before your CIs, do ensure that before your Cambridge exam, you again go through the 2023 paper, so that the format is sort of the same, which is going to be tested, because the format for pre-23 papers for paper 2 is a bit different. So if you get more or less sort of trained with that pattern and you go to the latest paper, you're going to feel that thodi si challenging hogi. So for that reason, if you have time and you have done the 2023 onwards, go to 2021 to 2022, do those, and then after that go back with 2023 till 2025, and that's going to be the perfect way to ace it. Coming back to the questions, now how will I be doing this? I sort of visualized it that I'm going to calculate the total. So because I need to store the total somewhere, I need to create a variable with the name of total, and I know that I'm not required to declare something, but this doesn't mean I won't be initializing it. The syllabus is 100% same for both O-level and IGCSE. So what's the difference between baad mein batata hu, Asif? It's just hard work and luck. So total, perhaps we have a long session uploaded for this on our YouTube channel. आप वो देख लेना guidance का, सही है? So total is a variable which you need to make use of. Now this total variable needs to be initialized with something. Now if a question doesn't ask us to declare something, this doesn't mean that we won't be initializing it. Whatever variable you will be making use of, you always initialize it with some value. Now definitely if the total variable is storing no value, there is no answer, there is no value, no marks stored inside it, then definitely it is going to have the value 0. Common sense, right? I haven't added the marks of any student. It has to have the value 0. Then I need to implement a logic which basically goes through the entire array one by one, one by one, one by one, and I take the marks and I basically put them in this total variable. So I will be making use of what? It's pretty much very straightforward. Because I know I need to do it for 50 students, I'm going to make use of a for loop. I'll be like, for the variable count, you need to start off with the very first position, 1 to 50. And for each of the students, what I need you to do is that you go to this array's position, which has the name of number. So if I want to access this position, I would be like, well, how do you access an array? You write the name of the array and you specify the position number or the index, right? Whatever you call it, right? So in this case, my position number is sort of defined by this, oh my bad. It's sort of defined by this count variable, which I have up here. So if I want to define the count variable, how will I be doing it? I'll be like, okay, you take the value at this position and you put it into total. So I'll be like, go to total variable. Whatever the value was in the total previously, like let's say we had 15 previously, you keep that 15, but alongside that 15, you add the new value, which is at position what? You go to the array numbers, and whatever your position is for the specific loop number, you go to that position. Like let's say we are starting off with position number 1. So you go to the array, you go to position number 1, and you grab the 60. So this has 0 originally. So you do 60 plus 60, 0 plus 60, you get 60 in total. Then you're like, okay, you go back, count value becomes 2. You go to now this index. index number 2. Now it has, let's say, value, let's assume 41. So now you go and you're like, okay, 60 plus 41. So 60 plus 41 is 101. So now your total updates to 101. Okay, मैं आराम से लेके जाता हूँ, don't worry. Are we making use of 1D array in this question? We are making use of 1D array in this question. Sir, can we initialize sum instead of total? Definitely you can initialize sum instead of total, don't worry. Sir, shouldn't you initialize count also? Listen up. Whenever you make use of for loop, yes, the recording will be uploaded. Whenever the question makes use of for loop, remember, whenever I make use of for loop and I specify a variable up here, this is sort of auto declared and auto initialized. So you do not need to declare it. You do not need to initialize it. Perhaps declaration ko phir bhi chhod do. You are not required to basically initialize it, because you know what this statement means of this arrow 1 to 50. This means that when you basically run this for the first time, you take the value 1 and you put it into the variable count. Then you put the value 2, 3, but this assigned, this is initializing. If you have a look at it, it's sort of the similar model. It's sort of saying that when you start off, give it the value 1. You see, count being assigned with 1, but every time you make use of the loop, you change from 1 to 2 and so on until you reach 50. That is the whole logic. So now what am I trying to do? I'm going to the array, I'm grabbing one value, I'm putting that into the total variable. And now, sir, can we use, sir, you can make use of while loop. You can also make use of repeat until. It's not going to make any difference, but because remember, when you know how many times I need to repeat something, remember, when you know how many times I need to repeat something, it's always recommended to go with for loop. And that is the reason why if you always look up onto examiner questions, you will have this one question, sir, maybe while loop is also valid, but why does the marking scheme make use of for loop? They make use of for loop because the examiner knows that I need to repeat it 50 times. If I know how many times I need to repeat it, make use of for loop. Otherwise, if you make use of while loop or repeat loop, it's also going to be 100% valid. Same. Sir, are we restricted to use 1D array? The question appears on their own have created an array which is numbers, which is sort of a 1D array. They do not mention that it's a 2D array. If it was a 2D array, they would have mentioned it something like number followed by bracket 1 followed by bracket 2. If they made something like this, then it would have been a 2D array. But because they sort of clearly mentioned that it's a single bracket 1, then it's a 1D array. So then can you explain the last line of this code again, please? Okay, so what this is trying to do is we're trying to calculate the total. Now, how do I calculate the total? What I do is that I basically go to the array. On that array, there is some specific value, right? We have an array which is basically like this. And at every point, we have some value, 60, 50, 40, 35. Let's assume I'm just filling it on my own, right? 108. So what I need to do is if I want to calculate the total of a class, I'm going to grab one value. I'm going to put it in this variable. And then I'm going to go to next position. Then I'm going to take this 50. I will be adding this 50 into the 60 I had previously. Then I'm going to take this 40. I'm going to add that into the answer of this, which would be 110 plus 40 and so on, right? So what I'm trying to do is I created a variable with the name of total, assigned it the value 0. And now if I want to access this value of 60, I do it using this format that I specify the name of the array and then I specify the position. The position usually starts off with the first index at 1, 2, 3, and it goes on up to the very last index. So in this case, it's 50. So we go one by one, we grab the value. So like if I do numbers count, it's going to take this 60 value. I'm going to assign it to the total, which originally had 0. And now my total has the answer 60. Next time I run the loop, because it's not, the program doesn't end up here. Now I will be writing the keyword next count, which basically tells the computer that, bro, now go to the next value. So now it basically changes the value of count, and now the count is basically pointing towards position number 2. So rather than pointing position number 1, it's now saying go to the array, but now point towards position number 2. So this is my position number 2. Now it's going to take 50. So this thingy is being replaced by 50. But if you see my total, now rather than having value 0, it's now having the value 60 from up here. So 60 plus 50 is what? It's 110. So now my total is being updated with 110. And that is how you sort of calculate the total for everything one by one, one by one, one by one, one by one. Say, sir, don't we need an average variable to store? Bilkul, aata hai, uske upar aata hai. Don't worry, easy scene, easy scene. Say, so now at this point, you saw that once we write this code, it's basically calculating the total sum. So it's basically calculating the sum of the 50 kiddos we have in the class. Now I need to calculate the average. Now I know that the total is in this variable. Okay. And I also know the number of students. What? It's 50. So if I want to calculate the average, I would be like, okay, let's create a variable with the name of average. Okay, and then I would be like assigning this average the value of total divided by num, or in this case we know it's 50, so you just divide by 50 and you do something like output average, and boom, you get perfect 5 by 5 for this. That is how you sort of do this question. If you want to add a message to this alongside, you can also do it something like this: output, you add quotation marks, and you can say the average is colon, again quotation marks, comma, and you write AVG. That is how you sort of do it. So how do I know when to initialize? You always are required to initialize. You are always required to initialize. ये ध्यान में रखना सही है. We have to initialize count for repeat and while. Yes, you are required to. Remember, you are not required to initialize count only when you're making use of for loop, because for loop automatically initializes it when you assign it this arrow and you specify that you are going from 1 to 50. We will not declare the variable average, just the way I mentioned earlier, because the question does not ask us to declare a variable. You are not required to declare a variable. I'm not sure why these teachers are again and again telling you that you are always required to declare it. It's not compulsory that you have to declare it always. If a question says, then yes, even if you do declare it, it's not going to be wrong, but it's not necessary. Like if I open up the paper for you, it's going to be also the marking scheme is sort of also not going to be declaring it. मैं आपको अभी दिखा भी देता हूँ, just a minute. Average by numbers count, we do this? No, it won't be valid. You cannot do average by numbers count because numbers count is basically storing some value. Numbers count is basically storing some value. This may be specifying to a specific index up here. So you are sort of doing that. You do total by something like 60. And also this numbers count, the variable count needs to have some value. So if you do something like number 1, it is basically pointing to this point. If you don't get this logic, this basically means you're lacking with the arrays concept. And I would recommend watching the arrays video on my YouTube channel. Sir, can we write next instead of next count? No, you are required to write next and followed by next. It's not next count. It's basically you write next and you write this specific variable which you created up here. So you're sort of saying that if this had the value 1, when you do next count, this 1 becomes 2 and so on until it goes to 50. Declaration नहीं करता डिमांड एग्जामिनर नहीं डिक्लेयर कर मांगता सही है. So let me show you the marking scheme. आप लोग को इतना ही वो हो रहा है. This is the marking scheme for this paper. I was told initialized but not average, because sort of if you look up onto the paper, when we are directly initializing average with the value. So you can also do it something like if you want to do it, you want to add this step of average being equal to 0, and then you sort of assign average to with the value of total by 50. That's also valid. But if you see, this is initializing. This step is initializing. What does initializing mean? It basically means that you give it some value. So you can do it up here, or if you want, you are 100% valid, you can also do it up here. You can do something like AVG with 0, and then you can later on update it. Doesn't make a difference. Same. So can we do something like total by 50? Bilkul Iman, that's also fine. But when I try to solve it, then I don't know how. easy. आराम से जब हम ये क्वेश्चंस करेंगे ना, उसके बाद आपको आराम से समझ आने लग जाएगी, हो जाएगा. सर इन जनरल पूछ रहा है कि ऐसे क्वेश्चंस आते हैं सर जिनमें एग्जामिनर डिमांड कर रहा हो डिक्लेरेशन. इफ अ क्वेश्चन आस्क्स यू टू डिक्लेयर इट, फिर करना होगा, वरना जनरली नहीं आता. करेंगे भाई, अभी ये आज की क्लास में यही डिस्कस होगा इंशाल्लाह. सो कम अप हियर, दिस इज द मार्किंग स्कीम एंड दिस इज द आंसर. You get marks for these: initializing, appropriate loop controls, totaling statements, calculation, and output. कहीं पे भी ये नहीं लिखा that you need to declare it. So if your teachers are telling you कि declare करना, bro, it's only required when the examiner asks it. In our past paper session, inshallah, starting from the 1st of April, for every pseudocode question, I will be proving to you all through the examiner's marking scheme कि कब करना है, कब नहीं करना. Now, the thing is, if you do declare it, there is no harm. It's 100% valid. So if you want to do something like up here, that at the top you want to declare total, you want to declare average, that's 100% fine. Doesn't make any difference. You're still good to go. Yeah, but when an examiner asks it, or they clearly mention that you need to declare it, फिर तो जबरदस्ती करना है, because then at that point there will be marks for it. So you don't want to lose your marks at that point. But if they don't mention it, it's not required. You want to do it, up to you. Doesn't make any difference. Say, but declare it wrong, so we lose marks. That's a good question. You won't be losing marks though, but it's not recommended, right? So इसीलिए, but you will be given marks just based upon this. So if you sort of did declare it incorrectly, but all of these 5 points are valid, you would be getting full marks, by the way. But still, it's recommended that you don't do it incorrectly, right? अगर करना ही है, and it's not even recommended, और आप फिर भी करें तो सही करके ही जाना. सही है. No, not at all, Aiza. बिल्कुल पेंसिल के साथ ना करना, डायरेक्टली पेन के साथ. प्रैक्टिस हो जाएगी ओवर टाइम इंशाल्लाह. So let's now move on to some new question. So all of this is basically theoretical part. We're gonna skip that. And now let's do this. This is a good question. Let's try solving this. Ye kya bol raha hai? It's sort of an error detection question. It is saying that a lot of people usually lose marks in this too. Let's sort of do this. So it says that the energy efficiency of an electrical appliance is the percentage of useful energy out compared with the total energy in. So percentage of useful energy out compared with total energy in, which sort of tells me that energy out over energy in. Energy in. So yeah, and you see that the algorithm has been written in pseudocode to calculate the energy efficiency of an appliance, and the values for total energy and blah blah are basically taken as input, and now you need to calculate the efficiency and output it as a percentage, which means that if I want to calculate a percentage, I also need to multiply it with 100. You should be aware of these basic mathematical thingies. So yeah, multiplication, division, percentages, ये अच्छे से पता होना चाहिए. Now they say that the entry of the number one for either value stops the algorithm. So we need to write a program that when it takes -1, it tells the computer that bro stop. Say, and if it does not take -1, in that case you need to repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. Now it says that there are 3 errors in the pseudocode, and we need to find them, and then at the same time you're going to be basically sort of implementing the right solution for it. So let's do it. Ho kya raha hai? So it says that repeat. Okay, we're making use of the loop. Perfect. Put a tick up here. Output enter total energy. Input perfect. Output enter useful energy. Output okay. You tell me one thing. ये तो सही है that it's telling on the screen that you're bringing out the message that bro enter the energy. But you need to basically input the answer, right? Rather than basically outputting it, right? Bilkul. So because you need to input it, line number 5 is the first mistake. I'm going to write line 5. So, and then I need to basically specify the specific correct answer, right? So I would be like a line 5, and then I can also write the statement output useful energy output. Pura likho, because in the marking scheme, you're sort of writing it the full way. So I would also recommend that you also write it the full way. And then what should be the correction? It should be input. And just like above, it's going to be useful. Okay, my bad, wrote it the right way, but it's going to be input useful energy out. Useful energy out. Energy out. Just like that. Now let's continue. It says that if total energy in is not equal to, this is not equals to, for everyone who is not aware, this is not equals to, if total energy is not equals to 1 and useful energy is not equals to एक second, and useful energy is not equal to -1, then you need to basically calculate this specific sort of what do we call it, क्या कहते हैं, value. अब इसके अंदर is there any mistake? थोड़ा देखो गौर से. If total energy is not equal to -1 and your useful energy is not equal to -1, so iske under seems to be no mistake, right? I guess, yeah. -1, -1, say. So we go on to the next part, and we're like, okay, efficiency calculate karo, which is basically going to be useful energy out by total energy in into 100. Into 100. In this type of question, can we write both logical and syntax error? Yes, 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 yes. Logical errors bhi ho sakte, rather than like and, they might specify like or. Say, so there can be mistakes like this. So don't worry, you can basically have multiple sort of such questions. So you should be aware of it. Okay. So, okay, there is one mistake, guys. There is one mistake. If I look back at line number 6, I just identified it. This is total energy in, which is pretty much very evident that, okay, we are taking this as an input. But you see, it's saying useful energy. Are we taking useful energy as an input somewhere? No, right? We're taking input as useful energy out, but the examiner wrote as useful energy. So that's the mistake. So that's another error. This is line number 6 error. So I'm going to be write line number 6, and you would be like useful energy is not equal to -1. And now I need to write the whole statement again, where I would be like if total, so like just writing it quickly, if total energy, by the way, you need to write it in uppercase the way it's up there, but just for the time saving is equal to -1, and useful energy, again, it's not going to be useful energy only, it's going to be useful energy out. Okay, so it's going to be useful energy out, just like the way I have total energy in, say, and it's also not equal to -1, and boom, you do it this way. So Just like that, you saying that what would be a syntax error in these questions. A syntax error could be that what if they say that if this is a syntax error, sort of like say, okay, rather than it being not equal to 1, if I write something like equal to -1, that's a syntax error. A logical error could be that rather than this being and, what if it's like or, that's a logical error. So any mistake in the code could be specified up here, say. And then just like that, let's go on. It calculates the efficiency perfectly fine, the formula is correct, same out or in, and then it says output this perfectly fine. And if, and now it's saying you need to repeat this until total energy in is not equal to 1 or useful energy out is not equal to 1. Is there any mistake with this? Let's have a look at this. Line number 11 says that it's not equal to 1, but the question says that you should basically stop when the value is equal to 1, right? Isn't line number 8 too? No, line number 8 is perfectly fine. You see, it says that you calculate the efficiency using this formula, which is perfectly fine. That this said that the formula is going to be that you will be calculating the percentage यहाँ पे कहीं mention था of basically output energy out compared with in. So it's basically out over in into 100, which is going to give me the percentage. So you see, out over in into 100, which is my efficiency. But the main problem is that the entry of number 1 is going to stop the algorithm, which means that the moment we have equals to -1 up here, it should stop. You should exit the loop. But you see that it says that unless your answer of energy in is not equal to -1, you need to sort of basically keep on repeating this. Then when will I be stopping it? So for that, it's really important that you also specify that when it is equal to 1, फिर आपने रुक जाना है. Repeat until this statement is true. So the moment your total energy is equal to -1, you stop it. Otherwise, this should be sort of going again and again, again and again, again and again in an infinite loop, which we don't want. It should be in 11, not ni. Negative, this not equals to should not be in line number 11. So what the correct answer to this would be that we're going to specify that whether it is equal to -1 or not. So the line number 11 has the error. And it says that the error is that you are basically going from until total energy in is not equal to -1, but basically it should be in a way where I say that the moment it becomes equal to energy being having equal to -1, you should basically stop it, right? But right now I see that it's not stopping. So what should be the correction? It should be that you should run the loop until when? When should I stop it? When my total energy in value is equal to -1, or because just the way they mentioned in the question, or your useful energy out value is basically equal to -1. And that is how you write and solve such questions. Until it's to -1. Bilkul. Sir, isn't writing line enough and not writing error? Yeah, it is, by the way. Like even when I used to do it, line number ही आप लिखो and आपका हो जाएगा. सही है? And shouldn't or operator be used instead of and in line number 6? By the way, this is going to be or because in the question they said that even if one of the values are basically -1, you need to enter. You see the entry of the number -1 for either value, which means that if your total energy is -1 and this might not be -1, you still need to end. And even if one of the if energy out is -1, you still need to end. So that is why we make use of or up here. But this is basically and because you need to calculate the efficiency when neither of the values is -1. If even one of the values is -1, in that case, you should end the loop. You should not calculate the energy. For that reason, we are making use of and in this. सही है. करेक्शन में हम करेक्शन लिखेंगे कैसे? जैसे मैंने यहाँ पे लिख दिया, आपने बस करेक्ट कोड को लिख देना. Whatever the correct pseudo code is, you need to write the correct pseudo code up here. And if you want to just specify the line number, that is also perfectly fine. Say I remember I made use of this logic. मैं तो इस तरह करता था, मैं सिर्फ लिखता था line number 5 and नीचे उसके correct output, and it was sort of you can say it was good to go वाला हिसाब at that point. So sir, can you solve solve? Of course. Sir, can you do the part B of the array questions you solve? Part B तो उसका था ही नहीं, या था? There wasn't any part B. ये तो हो गया. It was basically part B इसका. So now let's continue on. The next question says that you need to write pseudocode to check for an efficiency of 92% or over. So you need to see that if the efficiency is greater than 92% or over, you need to output A rated. Okay, makes sense. We need to output A rated अगर 92% से greater हुई. सही है. कुछ गलत टीचर्स गलत लिखकर फिर should be use करके लिखते हैं. should be used जो आपका करेक्ट सूडो कोड होगा वो आपने लिखना है. सो आपने आइडेंटिफाई कर दिया दैट दिस इज इनकरेक्ट, यू राइट द करेक्ट सूडो कोड इन द करेक्शन. शुड बी वुड बी कोई नहीं, यू जस्ट राइट द करेक्ट सूडो कोड स्टेटमेंट फॉर इट. That is how it's in the marking scheme. Marking scheme को follow करे. Why are you following something जिसके पीछे कोई backing ही नहीं है, right? Sir, अगर हम error identify कर ले लेकिन correct code गलत लिख दे, will we get a mark? Good question. You see, it's a 3-marker question. 3-marker means that there are 3 errors, which means that you're going to get 1 mark for each of them. So if you identify the error correctly, but you write the correction incorrectly, there are no partial marks in Cambridge. They never give you points marks, 0.5 or something like that. So if you get the right line number, but incorrect correction number, correction, you won't be getting marks. You will be only getting marks if both are correct. If both are correct. Otherwise, you're going to be losing marks. Continuing. Now it says that we need to sort of modify this current code by just specifying one part of it. Pura code nahi likhna, but it's just saying that how will I be checking for an efficiency of 92% or over? Easy peasy, guys. It's just normal conditional loops. So I would be like, okay, if this efficiency variable, because I saw that the efficiency is being stored in this variable, right? So I would be like, if this efficiency, if this efficiency is greater than or equal to 92. Why? Because it says that to check for an efficiency of 92% or over. So if someone just do 92, bro, you're talking about the over part, but you missed the 92. You don't have to do that, right? To ensure that you also accommodate 92, you need to put equals to. So it generally has to go in equals to, greater than equals to 92. If this is true, if this statement is true, then what you need to output A rated. So you're going to say that if efficiency is greater than or equal to 92, then output, and what do you need to output? You just need to output A rated, just the way it's up in the question. And I'll be like, okay, and if, and boom, you get easy 2 marks for just implementing a continuation part of the previous question. So not equals to wala sign maths wala kyun nahi laga sakte, because it's sort of just saying that it's sort of, क्योंकि pseudocode has this implementation. Pseudocode, like this is similar to saying कि यार मैं बोलूं कि उर्दू के अंदर खाना इसको क्यों बोलते? Why do I not say water to eating, right? So your pseudocode has this syntax. आप जब भी pseudocode के अंदर not equals to करेंगे, you're going to make use of this symbol. Say, sir, please explain what question is saying. This question is basically saying that if you sort of have to continue this whole question which we were sort of doing up before, but उसके अंदर हमने एक part extra डालना हो कि वो check करे कि जो value user calculate करेगी efficiency की, अगर वो greater than 92 हुए या equals to 92, फिर आपने output करने के it's A rated, तो उसके लिए आप कौन सा code लिखेंगे? तो definitely it's pretty easy कि जब भी हमने condition check करनी है कि efficiency calculate होगी, now I need to say वो greater than 92 है या नहीं. So मैं if statement use करके check करूंगा whether it's greater than or equal to, and if it is, तो मैं output कर दूंगा A rated, otherwise boom, I won't be doing anything. Sir, isn't else important? No, पता नहीं. Why am I getting this question a lot of times? If your teachers have been telling you कि you need to write else, let me tell you, else is not compulsory. Your logic goes in a way if, then, and if. अगर आपकी कोई else condition है, then in that case you can do if, then, else, and if. Otherwise, it's not compulsory that you do if followed by then, followed by else, followed by and if. So if you don't have an else condition, it's not compulsory to write it. I'm going to share the PDF with you all, inshallah, in our community group. For those who might have joined us from a different group chat, I'm sort of sharing the group link with all of you in the chat box. आप लोग हमारे official जो मेरा group है for the classes and where we have sort of all these details being shared up, I'm sharing that. You can join in that. I'm going to share all the resources there. So yeah, of course I can share it. अमार से मेरे सर अगर condition सोच कर थक जाता, ओ भाई नहीं else condition नहीं लिखनी होती. You, this is 100% valid. You ended up here. Else condition is not compulsory. I don't know why your teachers have been messing up with you, but that's the reason where I say that CS isn't difficult. People usually don't teach it the right way. So, and that is why आप जैसे बेचारे students, they have to face problems. But that is why I'm here to help you guys. So you're going to ace everything in the right way. Easy scene, chill. And for those who might be still wondering कि यार both scene off है, past paper session available, join that, and inshallah we're going to work for that A star. Sub best ho jayega. Don't worry, easy A star inshallah, if you are willing to lock in. Continuing with that, हमने ये question कर दिया. Now this is logic gates, easy question, but करेंगे नहीं. कितने marks? 5 plus 4, 9 marks, bro. 9 marks out of 75 for an easy question. सही है. Sir, what can be a syntax error here, bro? मैंने आपको बता दिया that a syntax error could be like, what if I say that rather than this being equal to, not equal to -1, if this stated something like that, it is equal to -1. या फिर this thingy where it's not equal to -1, this is sort of my syntax error. This can be said, बल्कि ये logical भी, syntax error could be this. This is a syntax error, that you need to take an input, but rather than taking an input, you're taking output. That's a syntax error. So it's not going to be like the question won't ask you specifically to do syntax or लॉजिकल एरर्स, बट आपको जनरली पता होना चाहिए, एंड इट्स अप टू यू हाउ यू बेसिकली डू इट। सर मेजर पेपर 22 का 21 का वो मुश्किल है, चलो वो कर लेता हूँ, बट डज इट काउंट? काउंट क्या? व्हाट काउंट्स? What specific thing? I didn't get your question. Syntax. Oh, no, 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 no. Easy, easy, easy. They won't be specifying, like at this point till now. I haven't seen a question with the specify syntax error or logical alag alag though, but you should be aware because a question can come up. They might say, what's the syntax error? What's the logical error? Logical errors always deal with this and or not thingies. And or not are on logical gates. Whenever you have problem with these three, it's a logical error. Any error apart from that is sort of our syntax error. इस तरह assume करो. So let's move on. ये पेपर करते हैं, फिर करते हैं हम सब वो वाला क्वेश्चन भी कर लेंगे, don't worry. So yep, this is a trace table. I'm gonna do it inshallah some other day. करते हैं, इसके ऊपर भी free class रखेंगे, don't worry. I'm gonna be there to help you before we start off with our past paper session for those special kiddos who want to get that A star plus distinction. But boom, we are done with one paper, right? Let's move on to the paper which I personally solved back in 2023. बल्कि पहले हम ये question accommodate कर देते, which was they say print instead of is that an error? No, that's not an error if print and output are the same thing. So don't worry. But generally, according to the latest format, it's only output. So I would recommend making use of output rather than print. Say sir, एक पूरा paper हो गया, only the pseudocode questions of one entire paper. So Hamza is saying, sir, आप May June 22 का paper 21 का question है, summer 22 0478 QP 21. Let's solve this. Let's see कितना मुश्किल है. I hope ज़्यादा मुश्किल ना हो, कुक ना हो जाए हम लोग, but चलो let's see. Question number 4. Oh, question number 4 ये तो उसके ऊपर है. What do we call it? Traced flow chart का question है. So if it's a flow chart question, we will be doing flow chart some other day. This was the question. Only pseudocode part B. Write a pseudocode routine that will check that each test result entered into the algorithm is between 0 and 100 inclusive. That's a pretty easy question. It's sort of just asking you. Yeah, this is directly from your exam papers, buddy. I'm not creating a question on my own. This is exactly what the examiner will be testing you upon. So, yeah, Yogi, don't worry. Now, what's this question asking you? It's sort of asking you to implement sort of a loop, a condition, which goes again and again, again and again, again and again, if you enter something which is outside the range. And this is what we studied in chapter number 7 as validation. Karata hu, don't worry, karata hu, sab karaunga. This is what we studied in chapter number 7 as validation. In validation, you would have studied something known as a range check. Remember? We studied something as a range check, and in that range check we saw that if, let's say, I want to input some value which is outside a specific range, which is basically 0 and 100, 0 or 100, if a value is outside these two ranges, I want the user to re-enter the value. So if it is within the range, good to go, but if it is out of the range, I want you to re-enter the value. Kaise karna hai? Easy logic. You just need to make use of a loop. And how? You would be like, okay, you can make use of while loop, or you can make use of repeat loop, whatever. What do we call it? Whatever is more feasible for you. So like, for instance, in this case, it's sort of taking score as somewhere up here. It needs to basically, there has a variable which is with the name of score. So we don't need to take an input for score because it is sort of calculating the score somewhere up here. Ye question humne kiya nahi, but iske andar hi ho raha hai, and it's just asking us to continue that. So what I will be doing is that the score value which we calculated up there, I'm going to be making use of a while loop, and I will say that while this value of score is less than 0, or less than 0, your score value is basically greater than 100. In either of the two cases, you need to do something which is while wale mein you have to write this do, otherwise it's not compulsory though, but do mention do, right? Because it's while, do, and while. So while score is less than 0 or score is greater than 100, what do you need to do? You need to tell the user that, bro, your score is out of range. So you need to output a statement, and in that statement, you need to tell the user that the value is between outside the range, or you can say your entry needs to be between 0 and 100, between 0 and 100, and I can say please re-enter, and I can be like, okay, you take an input for the score again. So you do input score, and boom, done. While, do, and while. That is everything you need to do. You created a loop. You're like, okay, if a user score was previously something like -50, this condition is going to become true, and it's going to output that, bro, your score needs to be between 0 and 100. The user might now enter something like minus 25. So it goes back up here and it rechecks. Is the score less than 0? Yes, it is still less than 0. Again, this statement will be outputted. The user will again input the score. This time, let's say they enter 125. Again, they go and check the condition. It's now greater than 100. Again, it's going to say that your value is outside the range. Re-enter. And this time, the user might enter like something like 65. So now, while score is less than 0, 65 is greater than 0. And at the same time, your score is greater than 100. No, it's within less than 100. So it's valid. It's valid. So because it's valid, this statement won't be run and you're like outside the loop, and whatever you might want to do with it next, that is being implemented. That is it. So no indentation behind input. You see the indentation is being carried out alongside the while. So आपकी indentation यहाँ होगी. It's not going to be up here. This indentation up here is only going to be happening if this input is something coming alongside output or something coming under output. Because output and input are separate things, it's going to come under the while. So you see we do have the indentation being carried out up here. So yeah. Can we do file handling question? लोग देखते हैं वो अभी नहीं होंगे. फॉर लगा सकते हैं सर, गुड क्वेश्चन. फॉर हम नहीं लगा सकते. फॉर हम क्यों नहीं लगा सकते? बिकॉज आई डोंट नो कितनी दफा यूजर रिपीट करेगा. एक बंदा पहली दफा में उसका स्कोर इज बिटवीन द राइट रेंज, तो यू आर गुड टू गो. तो आप बार बार क्यों करोगे? एंड व्हाट इफ अ पर्सन गेट्स द रॉन्ग आंसर 1000 टाइम्स, तो आपको पता ही नहीं कितनी दफा होगा. फॉर दैट रीजन यू ऑलवेज नीड टू यूज द while or repeat at the loop. So how to decide which should be used? Good point. And in this case, when you don't know how many times I need to repeat it, you can solve it using repeat loop and also while loop. So both are perfectly valid. आप दोनों कर सकते हो. सही है. What's happening up here is that if I have to just give you a quick, yes, this could be done with repeat loop too. मैंने WhatsApp GC link ऊपर share कर दिया. Can reshare it. If anybody of you can just resend it in the group, thank you. I would appreciate it. So score तो positive में होगा और while true पर चलता है, तो यहाँ पर तो false नहीं हो गया. क्या false हो गया? So ये तो यही बोल रहे हैं ना कि this statement is basically ensuring कि अगर आपकी value गलत है, if your value is incorrect, only उस केस के अंदर I need to basically output कि भाई आपकी value गलत है, आप फिर से score दो. If your value is correct, then you don't even need to go into this loop. So what this does is it is saying that there has to be some score जो कि हमने ऊपर यहाँ पे कहीं calculate किया. And now we are saying that if the score value is less than 0, or if the score is greater than 100, this means it's incorrect. So I take an output and I tell the user that, bro, your answer is incorrect, you should re-enter the value. Then the person re-enters the value, and then how does the while loop work? The while loop works that you basically check a condition at the top, and if this condition is true, in that case you run everything up here. And then when you go to the end, you again go back to the top and you recheck the condition. If the condition is still true, you still go through the code. But the moment this condition becomes false, which is only going to become false when your value is greater than 0, and at the same time your value is less than 100, because even if it's greater than 100, it's going to go do this. If it's less than 0, it's going to do this. So if the value is between 0 and 100, in that case, it won't be ensuring that this statement is true. Perhaps it's going to be false, right? Because your score is not less than 0 and your score is not greater than 100. So this means the value is making sure that this statement is false. And so when this becomes false, you exit the loop. Clear? That is the whole logic that is being implemented up here. Thank you so much, Shayan. Sir, if लगा सकते, if score is less than 0 or 100, then now, Zunaira, the point which you are sort of saying, that's perfectly fine. But there is a problem. What if you make use of if statement? But अगर बंदा पहले go के अंदर while making use of if statement, they enter an incorrect value. So your program is not asking the user to re-enter the value, right? The question specifies that you need to ask the user for the value to be again and again asked until the user gives a correct answer. You see that each test result entered into the algorithm is between 0 and 100, and this is asking for a routine, which basically means that when we are making use of a pseudocode routine, it tells us that, bro, you need to ensure that the value is correct. So for ensuring, we need to make use of loop to ensure that even if you're, let's say the statement which you wrote, that if it's not greater than, if it's like not within the range, you just do output re-enter, and when the re-enter kar lete hai, but once he re-enters, that value is also incorrect. Us case pe, that's still wrong. And now the point which you, Mameen, mentioned, that if I now want to make use of repeat loop, in repeat loop, it's 100% going to be the way you said that. In repeat loop, I would be like, until the score is greater than or equal to 0, or the score is less than and equal to 100. Because in your repeat loop, you need to basically keep on repeating until or unless that condition at the bottom is not true. For those who do not sort of understand this repeat loop and logic wali baat, I would sort of recommend that you re-go through the loops part to understand क्या ट्रू होगा तो प्रिंट होगा और कब क्या फॉल्स होगा तो वो प्रिंट होगा। चलो कर लेते हैं, डोंट वरी। व्हाट डज इंक्लूसिव मीन? इंक्लूसिव मीन्स दैट योर 0 and 100 इज आल्सो inclusive. So if I say that there is a range between 0 and 100 inclusive, this means that your correct answers also include 0, 1, 2, up to 100. If it says exclusive, exclusive means that you were 0 and 100, they are also not correct. So they are out of range. So when a question says that it's inclusive, this means that they are also in the correct range or are basically included. Say, sir, I don't understand that when we write an array program, we don't write input value, but in other questions we do. You sort of always, because your array in most cases is sort of pre-initialized, उसके अंदर पहले से वैल्यूज होती है। जब किसी चीज में पहले से वैल्यूज होती है उसके लिए आपको इनपुट लेने की जरूरत ही नहीं है। सर व्हाइल वाले स्टेटमेंट से पहले इनपुट नहीं होगा। अब ये तो अजान आपने क्वेश्चन अच्छा पूछा है, बेसिकली इस सिनेरियो में इनपुट होना चाहिए, बट बिकॉज इट्स अ कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ द सेम कोड, यहाँ पे कहीं पे स्कोर इज बीइंग कैलकुलेटेड। सो क्योंकि स्कोर हम यहाँ पे इनपुट ले रहे हैं, सो इट्स नॉट सॉर्ट ऑफ रिक्वायर्ड टू बी अगेन टेकन एज इनपुट अप हियर। बट इफ यू आर राइटिंग सम रैंडम कोड जहाँ पे सूडो कोड में पहले कहीं पे भी नहीं हो रहा था, देन यू वुड बी रिक्वायर्ड टू क्रिएट टेक एन इनपुट फॉर स्कोर। बट बिकॉज यहाँ पे स्कोर इज बीइंग टेकन एज इनपुट, वी आर सॉर्ट ऑफ नॉट डूइंग इट। अगर सर हम इनपुट कर दें गलत होगा। एक वैल्यू आपको मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि स्टेप नंबर 1 में एन इनपुट हैज ऑलरेडी बीन टेकन एंड देन यू गो टू स्टेप नंबर 10 एंड यू आस्क फॉर एन इनपुट अगेन, दैट्स रॉन्ग। सही। Is always shouldn't it be greater than 0 and equals to 100 in line number 1? Nope. It says that, bro, your while loop is going to execute these things when your values are incorrect. And your values are only going to be incorrect when your score is less than 0 or when your score is greater than 100. It's not going to print this when your values are correct, right? We need to print it when your values are incorrect, which are only going to be incorrect when your score is less than 0 or when your score is greater than 100. This is question number, I don't know, 4B, I guess. Yeah, it's 4B. So that is how you do it. Say, sir, do we write output first then input? Not necessarily, depends upon the question. All right, so we're done with this. Say, it's the summer 2022. ये ऊपर लिखा हुआ है guys, ये यहाँ पे पेपर ये mentioned है, आप लोग देख सकते हैं। It's paper number 21 from the summer 2022 year. Clear? All right, now let's move on to some new question. अब यही करें, let's solve this to see if we have some other pseudocode question which we can sort of solve up here. Otherwise, we can move on to some other exam paper to see कोई practice वगैरह कर लेते हैं. Okay, this is an older paper, so it has this pre or release material. Now this is no longer in course. This has been replaced with your 15 marker. सही है, and so इसको छोड़ दो. So now let's go to some other paper. So, sir, March 24, कर दे paper 22. This is 2022. Sir, there's a lot of confusion in the science in this validation. आप एक बात बताओ, let me just explain this. ये जो validation हो रही है, it's going to be running this statement when. So, if I go back, I'm going to be executing, ये कब होगा? When will I be telling the user कि bro, your entry needs to be between 0 and 100, please re-enter input score. You tell me, mommy, tell me. When will I be telling the user to re-enter a value? जब वैल्यू सही होगी या जब वैल्यू गलत होगी? Just tell me this. Like, when will I ask the exactly? As long as the value is wrong. So now this means that while loop will be executing these statements when this condition is true. When the value is incorrect, only it's going to be executing this. So this means that यहाँ पे ऊपर में वो ranges define करूंगा, which basically gives us an incorrect answer. So when will I be getting an incorrect answer? If my score is -10, is that correct or incorrect? You tell me. If the question says that your answer needs to be between 0 and 100, so if I have something like -10, is that correct or incorrect? It's incorrect, right? Bilkul. And if I say that, exactly, and if I say that like the program asks the value between 0 and 100, and I say something like 150, is 150 the correct range or galat range? You tell me, is it correct or incorrect? 150 is still incorrect. So this means that I'm going to be writing the range up here, which gives me the wrong answer. So I'm like, if your value of score is less than 0, which means it's incorrect, or your value is greater than 100, which again means it's incorrect. So when when either way the value is incorrect, you need to tell the user that, bro, your value is incorrect, and then you re-ask the user. If you write the correct range up here, ये तो वो बोलेंगे, bro, your answer is correct, and you're still asking for the value again. ये तो नहीं करना, right? And if you make use of repeat until के अंदर the case is going to change, and repeat until के अंदर वो आपको ये बोलेगा कि आपने basically यही condition होगी. But at that point, when we make use of repeat loop works in a way that you're going to write some code up here, And in the until part, you need to specify कि ये कब तक चलेगा. So you need to keep on outputting कि bro, your code is wrong, and you need to take an input for score. Until when? Until the point where score is equal to or greater than 0 and score is less than or equal to 100. So repeat loop के अंदर basically the logic is that when this statement becomes true, तब आपने exit कर देना है. Then you need to exit. Whereas in while loop, it is that when this condition becomes false, तब आपने exit करना है. You all are basically confusing this while loop की false and true वाली बात, which is why you are not understanding it. But if you want to make use of it in repeat loop, you're going to make use of this logic. Clear now? सर ऐसी कोई कंडीशन है जिसमें सिर्फ रिपीट यूज होगा और किसी सिचुएशन में नहीं, ऐसे नहीं हो सकती. यू कैन सॉर्ट ऑफ मेक यू, हाँ एक कंडीशन है, लेट्स से दे आस्क यू टू बेसिकली टेक एन इनपुट. Say, let's say they ask you to make use of a condition which is post condition. Let's say they say that within the loop you need to create, you need to take input within the loop. तो अगर आपको मैं बोलूं कि एक question इस तरह आगे where you need to take input within the loop. So if you do something like while at the top, तो आपने तो input ही नहीं लिया, तो आप check क्या करोगे? आप तो check ही नहीं कर सकते. So we can make use of repeat loop in that case where you can within the loop take input sum, and then let's say you might do repeat until let's say sum is greater than 100. इसको आप while से भी कर सकते हो if you want to do it, but इस तरह के सीन हो सकते हैं. सही है सर. रेंज चेक हमेशा ऐसे होती है. इनकरेक्ट वे डिपेंड्स अपॉन व्हाट लूप यू आर ट्राइंग टू मेक. इफ यू मेक यूज ऑफ रिपीट लूप, तो रिपीट लूप के अंदर आपने करेक्ट रेंज को स्पेसिफाई करना है. इफ यू मेक यूज ऑफ व्हाइल लूप, तो उसके अंदर गलत रेंज को करना है. एंड अगेन दिस डिपेंड्स अपॉन द क्वेश्चंस रिक्वायरमेंट. सही है. Not necessarily procedures could be tested anywhere. All right, let's now move on to some other pseudocode based question, because we are only doing pseudocodes tonight, so we won't be doing any of the questions. But was there any other paper asked by one of you? Sir, March 24 kar de paper 22. Let's go and do that. Hamza bhai bol hi rahe hain, so let's do that. Summer 24, paper 22, right? It's paper 22. Yeah, let's open this paper. Full screen, and let me share this. So now we're basically going to be solving this year, which is basically from your 2024, and it's basically oh मैं तो ये बंद ही करने वाला था आप लोग को solve solution से पहले. But चलो, now let's do this one paper. इसके अंदर क्या करें? We're sort of trying to we're going to find some questions. So let's see कोई question मिलता है. यार ये question तो मैंने काफी दफा कर ली है, but चलो. It's another pseudocode question. It says that the program design will include a pseudocode algorithm. Assume that the product code is stored in the variable product. Write the pseudocode to make sure that the product code is 6 characters in length. To make sure, again, validation. Validation, it is asking us to ensure that the value is equal to 6. If it is not, you need to ask for the value again. कैसे करेंगे? Easy, not that challenging. When you make use of repeat loop, and now the same concept. Repeat, and one कब तक repeat करना है? I'm first of all going to ask for the product, right? So I'll be like input the product, and now I would be like, okay, repeat until length of this product is not equal to 6. So if it's not equal to 6, because it's a repeat loop, so you need to keep on repeating until length is equal to 6. So if your length is not equal to 6, in that case, it needs to go repeat. So if your basically if your length is equal to 6, it would be like, okay, मैंने कब तक repeat करना है? जब तक मेरी length 6 के बराबर ना हो. So the moment my character has a length of 6 characters, I would be like, okay, this condition has become true, and this becomes true, mean I exited. But if it's sort of a while loop तो यहाँ पे implement नहीं होगा. This is the question जहाँ पे आपने बोला था कि no, you cannot make use of if. Why? Because what if a person enters something like hello? Hello is 5 characters. Now, if you might make use of if statement, if something is like if length is not equal to 6, and you do like input name, input product again. तो आप मुझे एक बात बताओ, what if the second times the person enters something like Mars? So Mars is still 4 characters, right? But the question said you need to make sure that even if the second time or maybe the third time the person enters incorrectly, you're again and again asking the user. That cannot be being used by using if you want to make use of if statement. Sir, while can also be used. While का एक मसला है ना. Now, if I want to make use of while loop, while cannot be used up here efficiently, right? If you want to make use of while loop, we see that in while loop, you sort of have to check the condition at the top. So if I might want to make use of while loop, so मैं क्या करूँगा? While length of product is not equal to 6, because this needs to be false. I'm going to do what? Input product, and end while, right? But now there is one problem with this, अब मुझे एक बात बताओ, where in my code did I take the input for product? I did not take the input for product, right? So it's sort of inefficient because at the top I would be still required to take input once before it, and then within the loop I will be again asked to take loop for the product. So it's sort of very, very inefficient, and we don't want to do something which is inefficient. So for that reason, in this case, whenever there is a scenario where you would be required to sort of take an input within a loop, it's recommended to go with repeat loop because the repeat loop checks the condition at the end. So you have the chance to first take an input and then manipulate it. Is this case sensitive length? Generally, it's not necessary and it's not stated somewhere that it has to be case sensitive, but it is recommended that all your functions should be capital. So because all these capital should be what? All your keywords. So whether it's input, output, whatever, all these keywords should be capital according to the pseudocode guide for your IGCSE O-level computer science or even for your A-level computer science. So I would recommend that if you're making use of any of these keywords, जरूर आप लोग उसको capital में करना. सही? So सर सारी validation library routines में included है, बिल्कुल included है. Why would we take input before starting the loop in a while? Can you repeat? यार आप मुझे एक बात बताओ, if I go back, if I can basically sort of go back and rewrite the code which I wrote earlier on, you tell me one thing. If I don't take the input and I come up here and I'm like, okay, check the length for product, bro, your computer would be like, what is the value of product? You haven't told the computer what's the value of product. ये तो input करना है. So it's sort of saying कि भाई मुझे आप कोई चीज बताने के बगैर मैं कैसे figure out कर सकूं? So if I tell you that what class are you in and you don't tell me what class are you in, how can I find out कि what course content you need to study? So for that reason, it's important, right, that you need to take the input beforehand. That's the logic. See? All right, done with that. So now let's get to the question number B, which is sort of a very, very good question because it checks format check. And this is a thing which even I missed in my live classes, that format check ka jo code hai, it's not necessarily being discussed anywhere explicitly, but we will be sort of now checking that. What if I ask you that there is exactly, bilkul, we will be making use of substring Hassan, but let's say I say that there has to be a product and I need to ensure that the first two characters of the product are always PD. So like if something is like XWay123, this should give an error and it should tell the person to re-enter, and when till the point where your first two characters are PD. So anything starting with PD, whatever the other characters are, but the first two needs to be PD. How will I be implementing this code? So for this, I'll be making use of substring. How will I be making use of substring? काफी easy है. पता है क्या? I'll be like, okay, again, take repeat. I'll be like, repeat. And then I'm going to ask the user to input the product, whatever the name is, so input product. And now if I, let's say, have some product, let's say I have X, Y, 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, exactly. But let's say it's this much. What I need to do is I need to implement a logic where I fetch out these two first words. So I need to separately take X, Y, and then I need to compare these X, Y with PD. So we saw that whenever I want to fetch out a part of a string, I will be making use of a function which we have been told as substring. So I'll be like, okay, take the substring function, take the name of the variable product, and we need to grab what thing is, we need to grab the first two. So you need to start from position 1. And how many letters do you want to grab from the very first position? 1, X, and then second this. So you need to grab 2. So you need to implement this. And what this will do is it's going to grab the first two characters for you. So I'm going to repeat this until when? Until my PD is what? Until my substring wali value. So this substring of what? Until this substring of product 1, 2, which is going to grab me the first two characters, is equal to PD. If it's not equal to PD, it's going to be repeating and it's going to be asking the user for an input again. But now kya hoga? It's basically whatever the input, like let's say I input something like PDA124. ये कितने 1 2 3 4 5 6. So yeah, what's going to happen? It's going to go repeat. आपने input कर दिया and now it's going to check it until substring is equal to this. So substring product क्या करेगा? If this is my product, it's going to go take this product value. It's going to go to position 1, and from there it's going to grab the first two characters. One is going to be this, and then the next is going to be D. So it's going to take PD. So now it's going to check, is PD equals to PD? Yes, it is, because this statement is true. If this becomes true, just the way we saw that in repeat loop, when this becomes true, you exit it, which means now the value is correct. We only exit a loop when the value is correct. If it's not same, like let's say it's something like AD. So AD is not equal to PD, right? Because it's not equal to PD. In that case, you need to go back, you need to take an input again, and sort of you're sort of implementing this logic this way. Clear? So we're going to use nahi, if statements नहीं यूज करने if statements में तो वही मसला है what if a person takes use of if statement and if statement के अंदर आपने पहली दफा तो identify कर दिया but if statement has one problem what if the person next time also inputs an incorrect value so for to cater that possibility where the user can consecutively input incorrect values it's important that we make use of loops so that if the person even enters an incorrect value for 1,000 times it can cater for that if statement का मसला है कि when you make use of if statement it's either going to be true or if it's wrong you'll be like okay re-enter it once. Say, and what if the second time he re-enters it, the value is still wrong? So you're not able to recheck it that time, right? So you're not aware kitni dafa check hoga. That's the problem. So what is substring? Substring is basically a function that basically fetches a part of your string. So it takes one part of your string, and this is the syntax of how you do it. You can watch my YouTube video on this. It explains everything in great detail. Is this clear, everybody? It's sort of an important question. People usually do get this wrong. And this is something जो कि लोगों को पता भी नहीं होता. But yeah, substring is being very important. It's being used again and again. So अच्छे से करके जाना. Let's do one last question. Then I'll be ending the stream. So I'm done for today. काफी back to back. I've been taking classes from 10 p.m. बस एक 10 मिनट और चलेगी. Let's see if we have any other question up here. Otherwise, let's just do this one totaling and counting on a question and then just end the class. So it says that totaling and counting are standard methods of solution, which means that you should be aware of what it is. You should be aware of the code and sort of all that thingies beforehand. So if they have told us कि यार ये आ सकती है. So you know क्या आप यहाँ पे सोचिए यार totaling क्या counting क्या? No bro, you should be aware of it. सही है. So procedures and functions का don't worry वो हम करेंगे next week होगा because we haven't covered procedures and functions in our live classes. तो आज complete कर दिए. So the practice for that will be inshallah done in the next class. Don't worry. सही है. So it says that you need to numbers are basically inputted and the number 9999.9 is the last number to be input and is ignored. So you need to ignore this number and at the same time when this inputs you basically need to stop. Now you see that the question is asking us to create an algorithm in pseudocode to total the number inputs and to output the total. You do not need to validate. What does this mean? It basically means that आपने ये checks नहीं लगाने that whether it's an integer or not. So no need for checks. Otherwise, you are just wasting your energy for no specific reason if you're sort of implementing it. अब ये होगा किस तरह? Definitely, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to be making use of some loop, right? So I'll be first of all creating a variable where I'm going to store the total. So I'll be creating a variable with the name of total. I'm going to assign it the value 0 because I need to initialize it definitely, right? So originally, it's going to have the value 0. Then I would be like, okay, let me ask the value from the user. So I'll be like, input the value. And if let's say the value is not, if it's equal to 9,999, I should be basically ending it and I will be like, okay, 9999 आगे इसको ignore करने, let me just output it. But if it's not equal to 9999.9, तो इसका मतलब है I need to add it into total. So I'll be like, while value is not equal to 9,999.9, if it's not equal to this, which means कि आपकी value ये नहीं है, so this means I need to calculate the total, right? So I'll be like, okay, whatever the value is, you put that value into the variable of total. So whatever the previous value of total was, you add the value alongside it. Boom, done. And now I'll be like, okay, I need to re-ask the user for an input value. So I'll be like, up next value mujhe batao. So I'm going to retake an input for the value. And now I'll be like, you need to keep on doing this, keep on doing this, keep on doing this till when? Till you basically get a value which is equal to 9,999.9. So the moment a user enters something like 9,999.9, it's going to be, okay, this condition has basically been proven as false. So let me exit it. And then you want to output the total is colon, comma, total. And that is how you need to solve this. And you're going to get 4 by 4 for this. And you can also be making use of repeat loop. Iman, बिल्कुल आप वो भी कर सकते हैं. आपने बिल्कुल sort of perfectly ही code लिखा है. We can do this using repeat. We can, if you want to do it, बिल्कुल. For loop नहीं use करना ना, exactly that's the mistake. सही है, यही तो गलती है. These classes will not be done daily. It's just going to be once or twice a week. Our past paper session, however, starting from the 1st of April, will be done every day, and it's going to be only for the registered students. So if you feel like you need it and आपको फायदा होगा, you can definitely join our course. You do not need validation. Basically, sometimes what if I want to check कि यार जो आप value input कर रहे हैं, rather than it being a number, what if a user enters ABC? So ABC is an incorrect value, right? You only need to deal with numbers. So उसके लिए we might introduce a validation check like type check to ensure that the numbers which you're entering ये ABC नहीं है, perhaps it's some numbers. So वो कैसे होगा? So उस चीजों के लिए हमने सारा का सारा कुछ अब I'm going to share my paper number 2 notes for you all in the group. I've covered everything in great detail वहाँ पे, and just like that, alongside when we cover up these concepts and questions, तो आपको concept पे revise होते जाएंगे. But for everyone who might be joining our past paper course, let me tell you, we won't be covering the course content. Yeah, we will be sort of doing it the way we are doing right now. कोई question आया, general overview हुआ, and sort of we're gonna go alongside it. इसी तरह की difficulty होती है, bro. Why did you write total में total plus value then input and not reverse? Because sort of you see, we are first of all taking an input at the top, right? So I'm taking an input up here. तो इस value को कोई तो भागना नहीं है ना. So if I input something like 50, I need to check, okay, 50 के बराबर, 50 is not equal to this, so I need to add this into total first, right? So इसको तो नहीं, if I take an input up here, so maybe something like 60 comes up, it takes the place, but I also need to add the 50. So I put this 50 inside it, and then I'm like, okay, let me retake the input, and in that input the person enters 60. That's the logic. So repeat will iterate at least once. What does that mean? Repeat will iterate at least once का ये मतलब होता है that if you see a pair, if the condition is not equal, like what if I say that the value is equal to 9999.9? In that case, will this loop ever run? If I say that the first time the user inputs something like 9999.9, it's not going to run, right? But if I make use of repeat loop has this one good part that anyway, whatever the value is, the condition is being checked at the end. So until value is equal to 9999.9. So even if it is sort of not being checked at the top, if the value inputted is 9999.9, it is going to go through the code which I wrote within the repeat loop. That is why we say that your repeat loop always runs at least once, whereas your while loop is a loop which does not run even at least once if the condition is that way. Output sum equals sum, sir. My teacher have told me this. No, that's incorrect. That's incorrect. Your question clearly mentions that you need to ignore it, bro. They say that you need to ignore it. Ignore means that you need to implement some model where it's sort of what it does is that rather than basically what do we call it? Adding the value, you need to clearly ignore it. You need to ignore the value. And just like that, for ignoring, agar ignoring ki baat kariye, how will you be ignoring it if I want to make use of repeat loop? Because in repeat loop, you're sort of implementing this logic that you need to basically create something like repeat, and repeat ke andar you're okay, I get that point, you're going to take calculate the total, then you need to take input. But how will you get to know ki yaar ye 9999.9 ko ignore karna hai? So for that, you will know that if you want to make use of repeat loop, you're going to be firstly assigning the value with 0. Then you need to basically again take, just like before, total ko bhi 0 karna hai. And for the first time, what if the user enters something like 9099.9, to usko hum yahan pe cater nahi karenge. What we're going to do is we're going to first add the 0 into the total part. So total mein total plus value. And now I'm going to be taking input, so that rather than it being added into the variable, so like what if a user entered, you would have this question, right? Agar yahan pe 9999.9 is being inputted, let's say I take an input up here, then this means that it's also going to go into the total variable. But I don't want that. Why? Because I need to ignore it. So if I want to ignore it, I'm like, okay, let me assume that value should be 0 for the first time, then let the 0 be added into the total 0, and now I'm going to take an input, but this time I'm immediately going to check it with a condition that until value is greater than equal to 9999.9. So now if the user enters something like 9999.9, it's immediately being checked with this condition up here, and if it is same, it exits. You do not add the value into the total variable, which sort of again does the same logic that it's ignoring the value which we want. So if you're sort of adding it into it and बाद में आप subtract करो, bro, that's 100% wrong. That's not how you need to do it, right? You need to ignore the value. That's what the question clearly mentions. And then at the end, definitely you need to just output total. And boom, that is how you need to do it. So now the question part B says that write an algorithm in pseudocode to count and output the number of input values that are greater than 100. You need to initialize it. Same thing, but rather than before, now what we need to do is that within the same code, I will also be introducing the if statement. So after while loop, I might introduce some if statement, and वहाँ पे मैं बोलूँगा if value is greater than 100, then you basically increase the counter by one or you count it by one. So do you guys want me to do it? Yeah, end करें. ओहो सर काफी क्वेश्चंस आ गए थे मैंने तो ऊपर ही था सर हाउ मच फॉर पास सेशन यू कैन रीच आउट या आई एम इन माय होम यू कैन रीच out to me later on it's going to be 14,000 for the entire session starting from 1st April till your CAIs of computer science so 1.5 months 14 months 14,000 सर इस कोड में सर इनपुट वैल्यू पहले क्यों आया वाइल का इसीलिए पहले आया क्योंकि आपने चेक तो करना है ना मतलब अगर आपने वैल्यू का इनपुट ही नहीं लिया तो आप वैल्यू को 9099.9 के साथ कंपेयर करें तो वैल्यू के अंदर कुछ है ही नहीं तो आप कैसे कंपेयर कर रहे हो सही है सो या if we use repeat loop for there, we will do input value again after total for that as well, or only one time just before total. So I guess वो clear हो गया. I just saw the question, but don't we have to count sir, not total? Yeah, वो question number B is a bit different. So उसके अंदर चलो isn't the total value line coming after taking input nahi na so you see if you take input at the top what if the user input something like 9999.9 तो उसको तो हमने ignore करना है so if you take input first you're going to see that it's going to go into the total variable which we don't want so we created a scenario we're like okay why not take the first value to be zero उसको हम यहाँ पे zero ही add करें it's not going to make a difference and then I'm going to take an input ताकि वो next time उसके बाद जब वो यहाँ repeat में जाए तो then it basically does it the right way that is why it's recommended to go with the while loop up here so now it's up to you repeat loop and while loop both can be used everywhere but the thing is where it could be used depends upon the question usage and so it's really recommended that you have a look at the specific question style and then decide upon whether it's going to be easier to use the while loop or the repeat until loop inshallah so yes let me just solve this last question and फिर उसके बाद कर देते हैं yeah in the past paper session we will be definitely covering both P1s and P2 it's going to be for both of them so but the main focus is going to be on paper 2 so you can assume it to be somehow कि 2 दिन हम P2 करेंगे then 1 day P1 2 days P1 2 days P2 1 day P1 so by the end of the time you will be basically done with your entire paper number 2s and at the same time P1s these streams I'm not sure though P1s के लिए we won't be having streams by the way we do have a lot of topical videos uploaded on our YouTube channel, so आप वहाँ से देख कर सकते हो. सर आप uni में है जी मैं uni में हूँ. I'm currently a freshman at LUMS, so yep, studying computer science. सर आपके कोई notes है मैं भेज दूँगा. अगर आप group में हो, just let me know. I can share the notes. Why is that depends. You can join our group to see whenever I'm free next. I might be taking this what do we call it free set. Sir, my sir told me to write the last line like this: total minus 99. Can you explain why galat hai? Amar, that's incorrect. You can ask your sir to explain that logic to you because that's not going to work. It's sort of saying that you need to ignore that value. It can't be minus 9,999.9. That's not how it works. So yeah. All right. So sir, did you do any wazifa यार I did pray a lot से वजीफा तो कोई नहीं किया था but yeah every नमाज में दुआ and वो सब कुछ तो जरूरी थी. The name of the channel is Code Catalyst. Even my Instagram is with the same name. You can follow it. We share a lot of useful tips there. I can also share the Instagram link. Definitely follow करना because we sort of have a lot of useful tips being shared there. So वो भी आपको काफी फायदेमंद होगा. And now if I have to do it, the last one, it's saying that I need to just add a condition to count if it's greater than 100 or not. So similar to the before one, but this time I would be like, okay, let's count it. So count के लिए एक variable होगा. It's going to have the value of 0 originally. Now I need to take an input just like the same way. So I'm going to take an input for a value. And I would be like, okay, while and now the same thing, while this value is not equal to 9,999.9 because it is sort of part B of part A, so wahi logic being follow here. Say if it's not being equal to this, I'm just going to be making use of an if statement that if this value is greater than, if value is greater than 100, then what you do, you increase the value of count by 1. So you do count and you initialize it with count plus 1 and then you're like okay and if no need to add any else statement not compulsory at all question me nahi given to kya karu and then I would be like okay now let's take the next value right so at the end I would be like okay let me take the next value so ugly value ke liye to I need to take a next value right so is wajah se input value yahan pe kar dunga and I would be like you need to basically do it till the point where the condition becomes what where the condition becomes false Say so the moment this condition becomes false, the value is not equal to, if it is equal to this, you exit it and you need to just output count. And that is how you basically solve this specific question. Inshallah, आप लोग के लिए सबके लिए दुआज है. Just give it your best. खुद अल्लाह से मदद मांगो. रमज़ान के आखिरी दिन है. It's really important आप यहाँ को इसको अच्छे से यूटिलाइज करो. And inshallah ताला it's going to be really good. सबके stars होंगे. Will you also be revising concepts in past paper session like 7? No, we will not be revising any sort of concepts in the past paper session. But we will be just directly doing questions the way we did it today. So जो हमने आज की क्लास में जिस तरीके से questions किए, just like that, we're going to start off with the very first paper. We're going to solve every question that way. जैसे हमने आज revision, अब it's up to you, Shayan, if you want to count this sort of revision. तो इस तरीके से revision होगी, and just like that, even for the 15 markers and for the scenario questions, we will be solving those, but we won't be learning the concepts behind them. We're going to just solve them, we're going to understand how to solve them and क्या तरीके कार होगा. The scenario वाले questions के basics यही है. These are the basics which are being used in the scenario questions. Scenario questions are sort of implementing the same for loop, the same conditional statements. आपने कभी किए नहीं है, but don't worry, we're going to have one free session over the next week. And उसमें हम scenario based 15 markers solve करेंगे. So you're going to get an idea of how we're going to go with that. Sir, P1 में input output devices का क्या पढ़ना होता है? Is method learning required? No, method learning is not required at all. You are not required to know how an input device works, how an output device works. You should be aware of what are the benefits of a specific input output device, where can it be used, why is it preferred at that place. बस ये दो तीन चीजें आपको पता होनी चाहिए. And at the same time मतलब general features क्या है, so like you should be aware कि if I make use of a 3D printer, of let's say laser jet printer, तो क्या features है. तो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि let's say it makes use of this thingy. Working अगर ना भी पता हो तो आपको पता होनी चाहिए thermal bubble क्या चीज़ है. इस तरह general points आपको पता होने चाहिए. बाकी सारा आपको वो step by step procedure याद नहीं होना चाहिए. Like if I don't need, आप देखो आप it's not like रट्टा उठता है P1 के अंदर. We do have a lot of memorization, but it's not like कि आप हमेशा याद करते हो. You should understand the stuff first, and once you understand it, after that automatically easy याद हो जाता है. सही है. सर सिनेरियो वाले स्टार्ट सिर्फ नहीं समझ आता, क्या करूं, एरेज वगैरह. हमाद मैंने अपने चैनल का काफी दफा बोल दिए, यू गो वॉच एरेज वहां से पहले से. सही है, आप वो देखो, आपको समझ आए एरेज 1D एंड 2D एरेज कैसे करने. एंड वंस डन विद दैट, उसके बाद आपने जाना है, फिर हम जब इंशाल्लाह 15 मार्कर को डिस्कस करेंगे आपको समझ आ जाएगी कि कैसे करना है. इट्स रियली इंपॉर्टेंट टू विजुअलाइज इट. इट्स गोना बी अ लॉन्ग प्रोसेस, घंटा 1.5 घंटा उसके ऊपर लगता है. सो फॉर दैट रीजन मैं यही बोलूँ कि माय पास्ट पेपर क्लासेस दे विल बी सॉर्ट ऑफ आल्सो इंक्लूडिंग द सेम 15 marker brand, and इसीलिए we will be focusing more on P2. So it's going to be maybe हम एक paper number 2 को 2 दिनों में या 1.5 दिन में solve करें, because definitely I want you all to fully understand it. But at the end, this 1.5 months of past paper session will be conducted to ensure that you guys get as familiar with these papers as possible. बाकी देखेंगे how much time we have to do as much papers as we can, but the main focus will be to ensure that you all understand everything. So using embedded system में क्या होना चाहिए? You should be aware of why an embedded system is, how it's working, what is it, and blah blah blah. सब कुछ आपको पता होना चाहिए. So you should be able to figure out the benefits of embedded system. जो examples books में उनको अच्छे से पढ़ लो. How do I get to know that it's an embedded system, and ये चीजें. Next class, let's see, follow my Instagram channel, and also at the same time follow the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow the Instagram page, and you can join our WhatsApp group for the upcoming details. देखते हैं next class कब होती है, but that's great to know. I hope it was helpful. No worries at all. Take care everybody. अल्लाह हाफिज. कितने घंटे पढ़ने हैं कोई इस तरह नहीं है. कोई बी के लिए तो एम नहीं कर, मैं जवाब ही नहीं दूंगा. ए स्टार के लिए अगर आपने पूछा होता तो मैं जवाब दे देता. एंड टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, देयर इज नो सेट अमाउंट. बस आप थोड़ा कंसिस्टेंटली रोजाना करो टिल योर सीआईज, एंड इंशाल्लाह हो जाएगा. टेक केयर एवरीबॉडी. सी यू गाइस. अल्लाह हाफिज. रिमेंबर इन प्रेज. बाय बाय.